Ok, pessoal, bom dia. Vou agradecendo já a generosidade sempre do professor Oscar. Vou passar a palavra para ele para fazer a abertura do nosso evento.
Bom dia a todas e a todos. Welcome, all of you. Thank you very much for coming for this specific event, which is a very important event in our school. Since the beginning, the relationship of arts and law was taken very seriously here at school. Even though, and I hope you don't laugh at me, we don't know exactly why, but we are putting a lot of energy to understand, and we know that when we take this seriously, it can be very illuminating for a better understanding, not just of law, but of the social relations and legal relations in this way. So we are humble in the way we are approaching law, but we are very serious in terms of not approaching in a limited way, in a formalistic way. We understand that we can gain a lot to add and to make a constant dialogue on the frontiers of law, and arts is one of the major interlocutors of this dialogue that we are trying to take into account when studying the legal phenomena.
I want to thank José for inviting me. This is my 11th visit to Brazil. I like to boast that I've never been to Rio de Janeiro. I don't know if that's a boast. I always come to Sao Paulo. I always meet with José and his family. I run an exchange program with two federal universities, Minas Gerais and Santa Catarina. I visit them, and I've spoken at both of those universities. I've spoken at USP and a number of other universities. I want to start by admitting that I'm not an expert in Shakespeare and the law. I have nowhere near the knowledge of this subject that Professor Lemon does, whom I recommended as a participant in this. My specialization is early modern literature, and I have two particular interests that I followed in my publications. One is an interest in lyric poetry in manuscript and print, especially in manuscript, and I do a lot of research on manuscript collections of poetry from the period. Sometimes these collections are mixed up with other materials, notes that people took on their reading, practical information. They kept commonplace books of various kinds of material, and poetry got inserted into that. And poetry was a very social phenomenon, exchanged between people. People would answer poems with their own poems. So I got interested particularly in the social dimension of literature, and literature as having a social history.
And a third point, of course, which is part of what Professor Marotti was saying, is that let's say the confrontation between church and the prince, or the pope. At that time we would say the pope and the prince, and now we would say the church and the state. The confrontation of these two powers is widespread in Europe, and it happens everywhere. Different countries or different crowns or kingdoms will have different forms of this confrontation. We can take England as one example, but I will also mention France as another example, because there's a difference. Professor Marotti was saying that Henry of Navarra, when he was crowned, he said, Paris is worth a mass. Yeah, but then there is a legal aspect to that. In France, they had already developed. It was developing everywhere in Europe, but it was maybe a little bit more developed, more traditional, the idea that the kingdom is ruled by leges fundamentales, fundamental laws.
First, you were saying that Shakespeare helped us because he translates in art the political theory and all that. But I would say that Shakespeare is really current and it's really universal. And I'll use a bit of Harold Bloom here to say that. Because he shows us, and only art can show that, really, that human, we are not only Homo sapiens, we are also Homo demens. And this part of demens of the human that say we have fears, we are jealous, we are crazy, we are all that. We are not only the rational part. And this demens part is the same as it was in very old times, and it's the same today, and it's the same through the history and through different countries. We have different cultures and all that, but the human being has something that is equal. And Shakespeare knows that pretty well. And what he shows more, I think, is that kind of part of human, the demons part, is on the power relations. And that's really important. For example, in Julius Caesar, the history, Mark Antony, he won Brutus because Brutus only thought in a very rational way. Brutus only thought the human being as rational, and he made a very logical discourse. And Mark Antony, he knew that the demons is important to maintain power. And then I'll back forward to the question that Rebecca asked about what makes a good ruler. I don't know exactly what makes a good ruler, but two things a good ruler must know. First is that human is not the human sapiens. Homo sapiens, the human is also human demons. And the second one is that power is interaction. So that's why, as you were saying, that the absolute power is not, you cannot be arbitrary. You cannot abuse of power, because power, you only can maintain it if you know that it's an interaction, and an interaction among people that are Homo sapiens and Homo demens. So a good example is Richard III. He got the power through violence, lying and killing a lot of people, but he couldn't maintain himself in power because he only had violence. He didn't saw the power as an interaction between people, and that made him fail. So that was only my comment.
My question is actually very simple. You mentioned equity, and I would like to ask you to elaborate a bit more on that, because I think it connects equity is connected to the characteristics of the king.
Yes.
Because and then it's when, in legal terms, you depend on those.
Yeah.
All right. So thank you all. I'm looking forward to today, and I just want to start first of all by thanking Jose so much for just this amazing hospitality. You've been just an ideal host, and I think both Arthur and I are just so appreciative. And then also thanking you all for just a really marvelous set of questions and conversations yesterday, and I'm looking forward to continuing that today. So we spoke a lot yesterday about Shakespeare, and obviously I'm hoping that we'll continue to do that today. But I thought I would begin today's seminar by asking a really obvious basic question, which is, what is political theory? In the original Greek, the word theory condenses three distinct activities. The first is theia, which means something seen, a spectacle or an occurrence. So that's T-H-E-A, theia. The second, theorin, means to look at, to observe what is going on. So theorin is looking at and observing what's going on. And then finally, theoros signifies an intelligent observer, one who looks at what is going on and tries to understand it. So that's theoros. Only at the end of this process do we have theorem, the conclusion, the theorem that comes from theory. So if we separate out these current meanings of our word theory, the meaning of theory as spectacle or intelligent observer, and also the meaning of theory as theorem, then we can retain a sense of theory, or specifically of political theory, as something that isn't merely a conclusion. Instead, it's an investigation. Theorizing, we might say, is an effort to understand. It is not validating or proving a conclusion. Oh, can nobody hear?
Yes, no, just because they are recording.
Oh, okay. Can you hear now?
Yeah, it's okay.
All right. As you can tell, I'm a little bit shy about like a massive microphone.
I don't like it either.
Thank you.
All right.
So theorizing, we might say, is an effort to understand. It's not validating or proving a conclusion. It's instead a process of discovery or inquiry.
Thank you very much. It's really a pleasure to be here and to meet a commentator of such a wonderful paper written by Professor Rebecca. And I must confess that it's a big challenge for me, not being a specialist, as you indeed are, to talk in front of a specialist and in front of some of my students as well. When I accepted this very kind invitation made by Garcés, I thought it would be a wonderful opportunity to go back to literature and to start and to think again about it, and not only about Shakespeare, but the very meaning of this, having such a discussion on literature in a law school and its relevance for legal education. And I think that, and this is one of the points I'm trying to make this very semester with my students at the ethics class, about the importance of taking seriously the great conversation that is made by the study of the classics, not only literature but also philosophy, the political thinking, Greek tragedy. And I think that it's very fortunate to have an opportunity to discuss Shakespeare, because he's probably one of the most impressive symbols of this classical tradition. I'd like to start making some comments on the very famous play Hamlet, and my first talk would be Hamlet on Schmittian glasses. I'd like to discuss and to make some comments on the Carl Schmitt analysis of this famous play Hamlet, and after that, I'll try not to be so long. I'll make some connections with my description of this interpretation and Professor Rebecca Lemon's paper.